Hey there. Happy Thursday, everybody. Thanks for joining us for our latest Bold Leaders in Learning. I'm Brandon Busteed, President of University Partners and Global Head of Learn Work Innovation at Kaplan. And I'm really excited today to have a chance to talk with Chad Jones, who's the Manager of Organizational Learning at Papa John's International. Chad, look, in some respects, college and pizza have always gone well together, but you guys are putting it together now in a little different way. And I know we're going to talk about what you're doing, but before we dive into it, would love to just have you tell the audience a little bit about your own personal background and the role that you're in at Papa John's.
Well, thank you, Brandon. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. As you said, I'm the Manager of Organizational Learning at Papa John's. I have a background in big box retail, transportation, and logistics, and a few years ago went back and had a desire to get my education and head in a different pathway. So got my degree in organizational leadership, and this month marks my third month with Papa John's. I started in a role as a facilitator and taught leadership development in the field and at corporate campus. February of this year, I was fortunate enough to be offered a promotion into my current position, where I lead vendor partnerships and find solution to the company strategies as we move forward, anything to do with learning.
That's awesome, and right now, I'd love to. We're gonna talk a little bit about some of the new strategies that Papa John's is employing around education as a strategy in the context of recruitment, et cetera. It might be helpful to start with telling us a little bit about what was Papa John's primary strategy to attract and retain talent from a historical perspective, and then maybe tell us a little bit about how the current climate has started to change that strategy.
That's a really good question, and I think it's different for just about everybody. But I think, like a lot of organizations, Brandon, we utilized your traditional avenues for recruiting folks to work in our stores. Everybody from delivery drivers all the way to restaurant managers and moving up through the corporate office. So leveraging a lot of the traditional avenues like online recruiting and company websites have been traditional. Word of mouth as well, working for great organizations. In this particular environment, the COVID-related environment, it's been interesting because just in first quarter this year, we started a focus on hiring 20,000 new team members to staff our stores across the country. We've been fortunate to have a business model that is able to take care of our customers when they've been stuck at home. So we're looking at every avenue possible to recruit to fill those slots. And our Dough and Degrees program that we're going to talk about today has been a great way to aid in that recruiting effort.
Yeah, so tell us about Dough and Degrees. Obviously, it sounds delicious, and would love to hear more about how you guys have created it and rolled it out. So and I know too, Chad, you and I have talked about in the past. I mean, it is deeply connected to some of the core values of Papa John's. So I would love to have you, just talk about that as well in the context. But tell us about what Dough and Degrees is all about.
Well, aside from tasting good, yes, that's definitely right. We saw an opportunity and had a drive a few years ago to find a way to compete in the ever-growing education benefit that companies are providing. From the corporate perspective, we've had a tuition reimbursement policy that provided education to our corporate team members, but we saw a gap, Brandon, where we didn't have opportunities for the folks in our stores that were working hard every day to deliver pizzas to our customers. So about 2.5 years ago, we started researching ways that we could fill that gap. On February 13th last year, we launched our program Dough and Degrees in partnership with Purdue University Global. And it's been an amazing experience. Now we are able to provide college education to all of our team members in our store, whether our team members are a delivery driver or an insider. restaurant general manager or anybody at our corporate office. But I think the important thing is to understand that we wanted to have a program that aligned to our core values. And I appreciate you asking. Our 5 core values are people first, everybody belongs, do the right thing, have fun, and innovate to win. And Doan Degrees, clicks on each one of those. From a people first perspective, we want to give every team member an opportunity to get an education. And the fact that everybody belongs, our program is kind of a first of its kind where it's a fully funded education plan. Our team members pay no out-of-pocket expenses, and they can pick and choose whatever program of study that they want, just because we know we've got a diverse array of people in our restaurants.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, as you pointed out, right, there's been long-standing tuition reimbursement programs, in many organizations, little used actually, which, has always been a little confounding to a lot who have offered it, but it's just not, it wasn't a benefit that traditionally a lot of people took advantage of. But, the way you guys have structured this, obviously it's, as you pointed out, it's available to everybody, regardless of where they sit in the organization. And there really aren't restrictions in what they can study. It's not like you're specifically training them to do one, narrow type of job. I mean, it really, gives a breadth of opportunity. So, I was, thinking about through the lens of, high school graduate, right, who's heading off to college or thinking about college and looking at things like the overwhelming sticker price at a lot of universities today, overwhelmed by, how expensive it is, realizing too that, a lot of college students work during college. In fact, the majority work in some form during college. So, I'm kind of sitting here thinking to myself, geez, if I was an enterprising, young high school graduate, why not go to work for a company like Papa John's, where I could get a college degree as part of that? I'm going to be working in some form anyway, right? So like that, anyway, I'm really excited about these programs. I think in some ways, it's a way to attract talent that you might not otherwise have got to Papa John's. So maybe tell me a little bit more about that. You guys are hiring 20,000 people right now. That's a really big number. What is it? Is it contributing to how people look at the attractiveness of a job at Papa John's? We've heard a lot about the retention value of this. The employees who are enrolled in these college degree programs as part of it are longer to stay in the organization. But is it moving the needle on the attraction of the 20,000 that you're trying to fill right now?
So all great points, and thanks for those call outs. I think that when you look at the program as a whole, it's impacting the attraction and retention of team members, right? To your point, we wanted to provide a program that appealed to people of all walks of life, and we're able to cast a wider net by having an unrestricted study path. And like you said, most college students are going to go work anyway, and we've got a very liberal plan in place where team members, our corporate restaurant team members, only have to work 20 hours a week and be employed for 90 days to qualify for our plan. Our franchise operations team members have access through Purdue University Global to reduced tuition rates for undergrad and graduate programs as well. So we literally wanted to try and have something for everybody. Where this program comes in, and where it really helps, Brandon, is attracting a different type of team member that we might not have otherwise had the opportunity to attract or to be on their radar. And so it gives us just another avenue. Our program is still early in its stage, about a year and a half in. So we're now just starting to collect some valuable data points, but the indicators are, we're seeing an increased level of retention, by program participants versus those that are not.
Yeah, that I certainly wouldn't doubt it. One of our audience members, Ken, said, first of all, this is a great program. Sends his kudos, and he's asked an interesting question. So he's asking whether you support employees enrolled in these programs with days off for study or time allowed during work hours to do schoolwork. I know you said obviously, even people who are working 20 hours or more qualify for it, right? So you could essentially be part time and pursuing school, but I was just curious to Ken's question. What is there anything that allows for days off for study time or schoolwork during working hours or things like that?
Well, I think that depends on who you're talking to, Brandon. And I think given certain roles, it'd probably be hard to make a pizza or deliver a pizza and study at the same time, right?
Yeah.
But I think there's some flexibility in the team member scheduling. With through discussions with their managers to try and create a flexible schedule to give our team members that opportunity to attend class. I think that's another really appealing aspect of our program, our partnership with Purdue University Global. Some of the classes that we teach or that our students attend are asynchronous. And so that team member can work in the store, deliver pizzas, and then go home and do their schoolwork at a time that's convenient for them. We're not bound to heading to a physical class. And I think also expanding the opportunities for those folks to go to school. Uh, some of our team members might not have transportation to get to a traditional brick and mortar school. They might not have the same quality of education in their geographic location. And so by having an online based platform, it's been helpful for us to reach people all over the country.
Yeah, I mean, those are the classic features of why, for working students, right? The asynchronous model, and being able to do it, in an online fashion from anywhere is for a lot of people the only way that they might be able to accomplish something as big a goal as their college degree. So, certainly seems like you guys are hitting on all cylinders with that. As you look at it, right, there's been, I'm just curious in your view of the overall movement. There's companies that have made a big splash with education benefit offerings. That was mainly before COVID. Obviously we're only a few months into this pandemic, but I think a lot of people are kind of wondering, geez, companies that might have been pursuing this might not anymore. There are a lot of companies cutting back in a lot of ways, and we just saw latest unemployment numbers now. 40 over 45 million Americans have filed for unemployment in the last 13 weeks. But like, I mean, you guys are just in a totally different place where you're actually hiring. I'm just curious what you think is going to happen at the broad scale, right? Do you think companies overall are going to continue to invest in programs like this? You think it's going to be flat? You think it's going to go down? What's your take from what you're hearing from others in similar roles across other organizations?
That's a really good question, and I think you could speculate on that, as much as you want, every different direction. I can't speak for other organizations. I think that every organization, from a purely selfish perspective, I would hope that every organization would find a way to contribute to the learning of their employees and their team members in some form or fashion to create opportunity. Education is the one thing that nobody can ever take away from you, right? And
Yep.
so, um, pouring into your team members by providing that, I think, is valuable. At the same time, there is a cost associated with it to outlay for the cost of the education. So if your business is in decline, I understand how it can be a challenge. We're fortunate to be in the position that we are, being able to be on a drive to hire these 20,000 team members. Jobs.papajohns.com, by the way, I'll throw that plug in there. That
Good.
if anybody's looking for work or for supplemental income, that's a great place to start.
Yeah, no, that's it's interesting. Every time I log into LinkedIn every morning, I see the "Who's hiring now," post is like the perennial post there. And so yes, I'm glad you plugged that. I'm sure a lot of people are interested in finding those kinds of opportunities right now. Um, we've talked a little about degree-based programs. I'm curious if there's components of it that are around non-degree education, right? Things that you would just consider, ongoing lifelong learning that might be non-degree based or certificate or things like that. Are there other components around the degree-based programming as part of the effort?
Yeah, so great question. Certainly, we're looking at the program as a holistic approach to education for our team members. Within the scope of DOE and degrees, and also through other resources that we have available at our organization. Within the scope of DOE and degrees, we'd like to see continuing to layer on different levels of education opportunities. Things like helping team members get high school diplomas or teaching English as a second language are of interest to us. Additionally, looking at ways that team members can hone their skills on everyday aspects of their job, whether it's through computer training or customer service, anything like that. We've got access to training internally for our team members to help out with that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of interesting components, and a couple folks are picking up on the comment I made about high school graduates, and Eric asked a question. So, with more and more programs like this, he's curious why more companies aren't doing things like attending high school college fairs and leading with the education as a benefit program while working. He says, my assumption is the majority of students don't even think about going directly to work to get debt-free education. There's another powerful term, right? Debt-free education. That is one of the primary goals that prospective parents and students have as they think about college. So their desires to go get a degree certainly haven't changed, but they're thinking about a lot of other pathways to it. And I think I mentioned to you when we talked last time, Chad. One of the most popular articles I've ever written on Forbes was about this kind of go pro early model, right? Of students thinking about going to work right out of high school where they can pursue college while doing that. It's a subtle but interesting distinction. So just curious if you had any other comments to Eric's point here about why not start doing active recruitment of high school students and starting to change how people think about it.
I think Eric brought up a fantastic point. Prior to the onset of the COVID-19 environment, we've built a relationship locally here in our corporate market with Jefferson County Public Schools and their Academy of Louisville program. So we've had an opportunity to interact with the high schools, and different departments within our corporate office have interacted with the high schools in different capacities, and also with college students, right? I think when you're looking at recruiting from high school, first off, you hit on something that's very passionate to me, which is debt-free education. I think by providing solutions for these team members to go to school for free, Papa John's is doing its part in trying to have a positive social impact by helping to reduce or not contribute to the $1.6 trillion that the country has in student debt.
Right.
Eric's question as to why more people don't attend or recruit from high school. I think that, popular opinion, and I'm not speaking from any published source here, but just popular opinion, I think that, there's a paradigm shift, I think, required to take a high school student directly from a 12th grade graduation into an online college, right? And I think traditionally, and you might be able to speak to this, but I think traditionally we've seen the online asynchronous coursework be more fitting for adults returning back to school, families that have kids because of the convenience. So I think that the COVID-19 environment might force parents and students to look at education in a different light, which might shine a little more brightly on online education.
Yeah, I think you're right to the point of, traditionally the marketplace has looked at online degrees as something for the, the non-traditional age working adult. And I think it's actually, Chad, been less about the non-traditional and more about the working part, right? Because obviously it's about the convenience of being able to do it when you can, as opposed to, if you're working 9 to 5, and classes are during that time, Monday through Friday, it's just not, it's not a viable route. But it's interesting. There's a lot of growing trend data that's getting to the points that you're talking about here, which is more prospective traditional students, right? Looking at college, saying they still want a college degree, but trying to find ways to do it faster, to do it less expensively, right? Like all these things are important to prospective students and their parents and guardians as they're thinking about it. It was interesting because some of the market research that I was involved in leading here at Kaplan was, kind of pointed to this. 74% of all parents of K-12 students say they would definitely consider a model where their child goes to work directly out of high school for an employer who supports their college education. And it was a little less among high school students, but still 56% of current high school students say they would definitely consider that. So obviously this isn't for everybody. I mean, there are still going to be the students and families who, value greatly the traditional on-campus residential college experience. But you can certainly see new dimensions of the marketplace, right? New archetypes of students, as I would call them, who are saying, "Wait, let me get this straight. I can do debt-free college while I'm working, right? For organizations that are going to invest in me." That's a big deal. I think there's going to be a real momentum shift towards that, and I do think you're right. This COVID pandemic has probably accelerated the likelihood of that, simply because everybody has now had good, bad, or indifferent more experience with online. And for a lot of them, it's been a net positive. I was just looking at recent data from college faculty, and about 12% say they now have a worse opinion of online education, but 45% say they have a better opinion of it. So yeah, certainly a couple have taken some steps back in their view of it, but 4 times as many are saying, actually, this is better. This could be better than I thought, or it was better than I thought. So, and look, I think the time has come, to figure out how we lower the cost of college in the United States. We're going to need a lot of innovative solutions, and one of the most important ones that I see right now are the Papa John's initiatives, where it's part of a multifaceted strategy to attract better talent, retain better talent, and look, it's the right thing to do, but it's also a smart thing to do from both the perspective of the business and the individual. So anyway, I'm really excited by the work you're leading, and certainly am eager to kind of follow the story. I'd love to make sure we have you on the show here a year from now, and maybe you can give us some updates on some of the metrics and the 20,000 some people that will have been hired by then. So definitely looking forward to it. But
I think it's interesting, Brandon, to being about a year and a half in, we're getting at the point where we're starting to generate graduate potential for associates, and a good number of our participants have transferred credits in from other schools, right? So those emails that we get from time to time with team members writing us and telling us the impact that having opportunity and accessibility to college like this is having in their lives, and that's our biggest why, right? And you talked about an increasing level of participation of students coming out of high school. I think if I were to make any recommendation to parents in thinking about getting their kids ready for an online experience, would be to start having those conversations early, right? And start putting them in situations where they get experience with online education platforms, LMSs, things like that, where they can see what that lifestyle is like.
yeah, no, I think it's definitely the case, and I know we've talked a little bit about the kind of the high school graduate potential with this type of program, but obviously the vast majority of the employees at Papa John's are past past the point of high school graduation, and they're at all phases of life, as you mentioned before. And I know even your own story was finishing a degree, later than the typical age. I mean, the point here is that, these programs really lead not just to the immediate benefits of the retention strategies and things like that their companies are interested in, but these are people who are able to launch into entirely new and different careers. In some cases, entirely different careers in the same organization, but in many cases, to work for another employer, right? So, how do you think about that? I mean, somebody goes through this program and they get a job in a totally different field in a different company. Is that still a win for Papa John's?
That's a great question. And I think it really depends on how you look at it, right? Um, when we think about our team members, they're coming from different walks of life. And when we bring someone in, we haven't asked for them when they go to school. We ask for them to stay with us for a certain amount of time. But part of us creating a best-in-class program was to create a program that had a completely wide open path of learning with a moderate work work requirement. Stay with us for a period of time to be vested in your education. But lastly, if you want to go do something else, then we applaud you. Be the very best, whatever it is that you want to be. Thank you for your time. And so I think it's either way is a win for us, Brandon, because while that team member is going to school, they get to provide service to the brand, and we get to provide them an education. If they choose to grow with us, then they're continuing their journey and they're leading others. But if they choose to leave, then we hope that they have fond memories of Papa John's helping them get a debt-free education, and they buy Papa John's for life.
Yeah, the brand ambassador program, I'm sure it will be pretty prominent as a result of that. I mean, I can't imagine it's not. And you think about the lasting impact that that college has on graduates. This goes back to research I led when I was at Gallup, but college is obviously a transformative experience for a lot of the people who go through it. But there's actually some really key ingredients that really make it last for a lifetime in terms of its overall impact. And they are things like graduates who say they were able to have a job or an internship during college where they could apply what they were learning in the classroom. That they had, in this case, professors who cared about them as a person, or a mentor who encouraged their goals and dreams, or they worked on a long-term project that took a semester more to complete. Like that quick summary are essentially the secret sauce of higher education, right? Now, the problem is those things don't happen for everybody who goes to college, and they don't happen for everybody who gets a degree even. But, as you think about those four things, right, a professor or a mentor who encouraged your goals and dreams, there's also no reason why that couldn't be through the workplace, right? I have a manager who encourages my goals and dreams, right? The people I work with care about me as a person. And so when I dissect those, those secret sauce aspects of higher ed, frankly, there's no reason why employers can't work on creating that secret sauce as part of the employment experience, as those students are also going through valuable education programs. And I think, the values that you've kind of woven this program in and around are really going to speak to that. So anyway, and by the way, I have to tell you a funny story. So my wife is a dietitian. She's the sports dietitian for George Mason University. And you might think this is not going in a good direction for pizza, but we were on our first date, and I was curious. I asked her the question. I was like, all right, so if you were on a deserted island, you only had 3 types of foods to pick for the rest of your life, what would they be? And I was very pleasantly surprised to hear her say pizza was her first answer. And she was thinking about the macronutrient combination of the carbohydrates and protein. And she was thinking about, the vegetables and healthy options that we put on it. So I felt like I had to share that personal story with you today, because anytime now that I go to order Papa John's, I can just, look at my wife and say, look, you told me this was,
Right.
this was the choice. So
I can't wait to try that with mine.
yeah, you can say dietitian approved from Deanna Bustede. But
Right. Well, I appreciate the call out on the core values, Brandon, because I think, you hit it on the head when you're talking about more companies building out programs like this. when you start your initiatives with a people first perspective, it's easy to do everything else. It's easy to create an environment where everybody belongs. It's easy to do the right thing because it is the right thing to do. I mean, it's easy to have fun while you're doing it. I mean, pizza's fun. Let's face it. Pizza brings everybody together, and 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 we're an innovative company, and so I think that this Dough and Degrees program is just one more example of how we want to lead a best in class program.
Well, I think that's an awesome place to leave it, Chad. I'm inspired by the work you're doing. Really appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time joining me today, and I'll look forward, like I said, to a catch up conversation next year so we can hear some more.
Thank you for the opportunity to join you today, Brandon.
Definitely. All right. Have a great rest of the week, everybody.